Most people never stop to ask who they're really living for. They move through life ruled by noise, what others expect, what society says is acceptable, what fear whispers when it gets dark and quiet. But there's a moment, sometimes subtle, sometimes violent, when a person finally wakes up and chooses themselves. Everything changes after that, not because the world becomes easier, but because the individual finally becomes real. This video is about that moment. What happens inside you and around you when you stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing yourself above comfort, above approval, above everything that once held you back. When I first started researching success, I wasn't searching for wealth. I was searching for truth, and I found it in the minds of the world's greatest achievers, men and women who didn't rise because of luck or timing. They rose because they decided, they claimed a definite purpose, and refused to abandon it. They fed that purpose daily with desire, faith, and repetition, not once, but again and again. That's what we'll break down in this video. The real cost and the real power of choosing yourself. Not in theory, in spirit, in mind, and in action. Most people think success is about strategy. It's not. It's about identity. You'll learn why your subconscious obeys what you really believe about yourself, how autosuggestion rewires that belief, and why a burning desire isn't a wish, it's a spiritual order. Stay with me until the end, and you'll see how to stop living by reaction and start living by design. This isn't motivation, it's a wake-up call. You're always creating, even when you don't mean to. Welcome to Napoleon's Limitless Code. If you're ready to take back authorship of your life, subscribe and let's walk this path together. There comes a moment in every honest life when the question rises quietly, but unmistakably, why do I feel wrong for wanting more? Not more to boast, not more to compare, but more because something deep within calls for it. In that moment, a man must choose, either to suppress the desire and shrink into safety, or to let it speak. Napoleon Hill wrote that desire is the starting point of all achievement. He did not say chance. He did not say talent. He said desire, the deep burning want that refuses to die even when the world tells you to be content. Most people are taught to apologize for that feeling, to dress it up, to call it something else. But desire in its purest form is not selfish. It is sacred. It is the echo of what you are here to do. When I studied the lives of the most successful men of our time, I found a pattern. They each began with a want so strong it would not be silenced. That desire became their compass. It pushed them to act when no one believed. It kept them moving when results had not yet come. It gave shape and heat to their thoughts until those thoughts became reality. But here is the part rarely spoken aloud. Desire, once chosen, changes you. It demands responsibility. It asks you to step away from mediocrity, from distraction, from the comfort of being liked. And in its place, it offers clarity about who you are and what you are becoming. To choose yourself is to stop apologizing for what you feel drawn toward. It is to say, quietly but completely, this life is mine to build, and I will not deny what I know is mine to create. There's a quiet kind of suffering in drifting, when your days are full, yet somehow empty. You move, but there's no direction. You achieve, but there's no meaning. You follow paths that were never yours to begin with. And still, a voice within keeps asking, where are you going? Everything begins to shift the moment you answer that question, not with a vague hope, but with a firm decision. A definite purpose is not a wish. It is a command issued from the soul to the mind. It says, this is where we are going. This is what matters now. From that moment on, energy begins to organize. Thoughts gain weight. Words gain power. Action gains consistency. You no longer chase what moves. You become the one who moves with intention. You wake each morning not asking what will happen, but declaring what must happen. And the mind, loyal to its master, begins to obey. Even obstacles change shape. A delay is no longer a sign to stop. It becomes part of the architecture. A closed door is not rejection. It is redirection. When your purpose is definite, life stops feeling random. It starts to feel like a pattern being revealed, one step at a time. You begin to affirm not just with words but with action. I know where I'm going. I trust what I'm building. I am prepared to receive what I've claimed. This clarity sends out a signal, and the world by law begins to respond. People, ideas, and opportunities align, not by force but by resonance. Purpose brings order to chaos. It turns scattered energy into a focused current, and it replaces the noise of doubt with the discipline of direction. You stop surviving. You start aiming with everything you are. There comes a time when applause no longer matters. Approval no longer satisfies. You've been praised and doubted, lifted and ignored, and none of it made you more certain, because the real certainty was never meant to come from outside. Faith is not waiting for a sign. It is choosing to trust what you can feel but cannot yet see. It is knowing without proof that the vision you carry is real because it won't leave you alone. It speaks in quiet moments. It returns when things fall apart. It survives even when everything else fades. To choose yourself is to stop asking others to believe in your dream. It is to say, I believe in it enough for all of us. That's when things begin to shift. The world mirrors what you hold steady. When your inner conviction becomes unshakable, outer circumstances start to bend. You begin to speak from the place of already becoming. It is unfolding. I am aligned. I am ready. This is not blind hope. It is disciplined vision. Faith without discipline fades into wishful thinking. But when you feed your faith daily with words, with action, with stillness, it grows roots. It becomes a structure you can lean on. There will still be doubt. That's natural, but you no longer let it decide. You walk anyway. You affirm anyway. You act in agreement with the outcome you've claimed. And through that alignment, life begins to match your inner world. External validation is a temporary fix. Faith is a foundation. And once it's in place, you don't need to convince anyone of anything. You move in silence with certainty, because deep down you already know it's not about them. It never was. The vision chose you, and your belief is what makes it real. The mind is always listening, even when you're not speaking out loud. Every thought, every word, every silent agreement with fear, it all gets recorded. Over time, those recordings become the script, and that script becomes your life. Most people don't realize they're reading lines handed to them by others, parents, teachers, wounds, the world. They say things like, I'm not good with money, or I always mess this up, and never question who wrote that story. But the moment you choose yourself, the pen returns to your hand, and you begin the quiet, disciplined work of rewriting. Autosuggestion is not about pretending. It's about choosing. Choosing what gets repeated. Choosing which voice becomes the dominant one. When you say, I am capable, I am supported, I am already becoming, you are not trying to convince the world. You are reconditioning your own mind to see what it had been trained to ignore. At first, it may feel unnatural. That's expected. You're introducing a new frequency to a system that's been running on fear. But with repetition, daily, deliberate, unwavering, something shifts. The subconscious begins to accept the new script as law. And once it does, everything starts to align with it. You move differently, speak differently, notice new opportunities. Why? Because you're no longer carrying the old limitations into every room you enter. Affirmations are not magic words. They are anchors. Each one says, this is who I am now. This is what I allow. This is what I build. Discipline makes it real. Repetition makes it stick. And belief makes it powerful. The world responds not to what you want, but to what you consistently affirm, feel, and expect. That's the script. That's the signal. And once you control the signal, you begin to control the story. There is a part of you that never sleeps. It hears what you repeat, accepts what you expect, and builds quietly beneath the surface. It doesn't question. It doesn't reason. It simply receives and obeys. This is the subconscious. And whether you guide it or not, it is always at work. For most, it becomes a silent enemy, running patterns of fear, scarcity, and self-sabotage. Not out of malice, but programming. The stories repeated in childhood, the failures rehearsed in memory, the quiet agreements made with limitation. But the moment you choose yourself, you stop feeding it by default. You begin to feed it by design. You speak with intention. You think with care. You plant new seeds, not just once, but every day. Through affirmation, discipline, and presence, your subconscious begins to shift. It becomes a partner, an ally, a quiet force moving in your favor. It begins small, a different reaction, a calmer choice. A door you might have overlooked suddenly feels open. This is not coincidence. This is alignment. When the subconscious aligns with your conscious vision, effort becomes focused. Energy becomes magnetic. You are no longer trying to force results. You are attracting them through resonance. Not because you sat still and wished, but because you trained your inner world to match what you've claimed. You begin to speak into your mornings. Today I align. Today I trust. Today I receive. Not for show, but because your mind listens, and your body responds, and the world, always reflecting, begins to shape itself around the signal you carry. This is the power you've always had. You were never broken, just misaligned. And now the same mind that once worked against you begins to clear the path ahead, quietly, steadily, faithfully. There's a moment in every journey when the path becomes steep, when the results don't match the effort, and silence replaces applause. Most turn back there, not because they lack strength, but because they lack alignment. A part of them still doubts, a part still wonders if the dream is theirs to claim. But when you've truly chosen yourself fully, without hesitation, something changes. You don't run at every sign of resistance. You lean in, you listen. You ask, what is this moment here to teach me? And then you continue. Persistence is not grinding your soul into the ground. It's a calm, unwavering return to what you said you would do. Not out of desperation, but out of certainty. You said yes to the path, and that yes carries weight, even on the days when nothing seems to move. Affirmations keep the mind steady. I continue. I trust the process. I know what I've planted is growing. These are not just words. They are reminders to the subconscious that your decision is still in place. Discipline keeps the body moving, even when tired, even when the outer world says it's not working, because deep down, you've stopped needing evidence to justify your purpose. You already know it's real. And the law responds not to how loud your belief is, but to how steady. Energy compounds. Intent, held long enough, gains force. Delays no longer feel like rejection. They feel like refinement. Every so-called failure becomes information. Every obstacle sharpens focus. You persist because the outcome is already yours. You're not chasing it. You're aligning with it. And when you move with that kind of inner clarity, resistance isn't a wall. It's a gate, one that only opens for those who keep walking. There is a power within you that doesn't speak in facts or logic. It speaks in images, visions, and possibility. It doesn't ask for proof. It asks for permission. That power is imagination, not the kind used to escape life, but the kind that builds it. When you truly choose yourself, something within shifts. You no longer see the world as fixed. You stop staring at problems as if they're permanent. Instead, you begin to ask better questions. Not why is this happening to me, but what is this showing me? Where is the opening? Imagination reveals what logic cannot. It opens your inner sight, and suddenly where you once saw blocks, you now see blueprints. Where you once saw limits, you now see angles. This isn't fantasy, it's creative alignment. You are no longer bound by what has been. You begin to move in the direction of what can be. Affirmations help to unlock this deeper vision. I see clearly. I create boldly. I trust my ideas. Each word tells the subconscious, this mind is no longer trapped in survival. It is here to build, to express, to expand. Discipline gives imagination structure. You write it down, you sketch it out, you speak it daily, not just when it feels good, but especially when doubt creeps in, because imagination left unused fades, but imagination fed with faith becomes a magnet. And the law responds not to what's reasonable, but to what's real inside you. The moment you stop asking, what if I fail, and begin asking, what if this actually works, the entire landscape changes. Doors that didn't exist begin to appear. Not because they suddenly formed, but because now, for the first time, you can finally see them. There is a difference between being surrounded and being supported. Many walk through life surrounded by noise, opinions, and demands, yet still feel alone in their vision. Not because others don't care, but because alignment is rare, and alignment only begins when you choose yourself. When you step into your truth fully, calmly, without needing approval, you shift your signal. You're no longer reaching for people out of fear or clinging out of lack. You're no longer bending yourself to fit. Instead, you stand, clear, honest, purposeful, and from that place, others begin to appear. Not just anyone, the right ones. People whose minds don't drain your energy but sharpen it. People who hear your vision and say, let's build. This is the power of aligned minds working in harmony, not through control but through resonance. And that resonance only activates when you stop hiding, when you stop pretending to be smaller than you are just to stay safe or agreeable. Affirmations open the space for this connection. I attract those who align with my purpose. My presence draws empowered minds. I welcome support that honors my path. Discipline holds the standard. You no longer chase people who don't see you. You don't beg to be understood. You build what you're here to build, and those meant to walk with you recognize the signal. This is not luck. This is attraction in its truest form. When the mind is clear, the energy is clean, And when the energy is clean, it becomes magnetic. Collaboration flows not from need, but from overflow, from purpose meeting purpose, from truth meeting truth. When you stop hiding, others can finally find you, not the version you showed them, but the one you actually are. And that's when real creation begins. There is a fire inside every human being. It shows up as longing, as restlessness, as hunger for something more. For many, that fire gets scattered, burned up in distraction, buried under guilt, spent chasing things that never satisfy. But the moment you choose yourself, the fire begins to focus. You realize the energy you once wasted on proving yourself, fixing others, or numbing your own discontent can be redirected, not suppressed, transmuted. This is not denial of emotion, it is mastery of it. The desire, the frustration, even the ache you carry, it all becomes fuel. Instead of being consumed by it, you shape it. You take the raw energy and feed it into your work, your purpose, your vision. This is the quiet alchemy of choosing yourself. Nothing is wasted. Every emotion becomes a tool. Every craving becomes creative force. Every pain, properly channeled, becomes power. Affirmations sharpen that channel. My energy fuels my purpose. I direct my desire into creation. All things serve my growth. Discipline keeps the fire contained, but never diminished. It gives it form, structure, direction. Without discipline, the energy burns out. With it, it becomes unstoppable. You stop chasing temporary highs. You stop falling into old loops of drama and distraction. And in their place, you begin to build. You work not just with your hands, but with your life force. And that kind of work carries a different frequency. It's alive. It's magnetic. It speaks even when you're silent. Transmutation is not about perfection. It's about presence. It's about being honest with the energy you feel and asking, where does this belong? The moment you answer that with purpose, the chaos becomes creation. The storm becomes fuel, and your life, once fragmented, begins to flow as one powerful current. There's a quiet moment, often after struggle, often after silence, when something within finally clicks. It was me. It's always been me. Not in blame, not in shame, but in deep, unshakable truth. You stop seeing life as a series of random events. You stop waiting for someone to come save you, fix you, or choose you, and instead you remember you are the one writing this story. Every thought, every belief, every feeling cast into the world like a seed, and slowly, surely, the outer begins to reflect the inner. This is not a theory. It's not a nice idea to keep you motivated. It's law. What you hold consistently within, what you affirm, what you expect, what you emotionally accept, becomes the pattern of your life. Choosing yourself means taking back authorship, not to control every outcome, but to become intentional with every cause. You begin to ask, what am I creating right now, with this thought, with this reaction, with this choice? And with that awareness, you rise. Slowly at first, but with certainty, you step out of reaction and into command. Affirmations become declarations. I am the cause. My inner world shapes all things. I take full responsibility for my creation. Discipline becomes the practice of authorship. No longer moved by every external shift, you remain steady in the story you've chosen to tell. The world may not reflect it immediately, but you don't need it to. You know what's coming, because you know what you've planted. This is the final shift. Not just thinking like a creator, but being one. You stop chasing outcomes because you know where they come from. They come from you, and that realization changes everything. Every moment you are planting something in thought, in feeling, in focus. Most let that happen unconsciously, but the few who wake up, who choose themselves fully, begin to plant with intention. That's when life starts to shift. This isn't about becoming someone else. It's about returning to who you were before the noise, before the doubt, before the world told you to settle. Choosing yourself isn't ego. It's alignment with the deeper truth of who you are and what you're here to create. You don't need to rush. You don't need to prove. You simply need to choose again and again, in thought, in word, in action. That quiet decision made daily is how you reclaim authorship of your life. So as you move forward, ask yourself not just what you want, but who you're willing to become in order to receive it. Speak what you mean, affirm what you desire, honor the vision that lives in you, even when no one else sees it yet. This is the work, calm, steady, powerful, and it begins the moment you stop waiting and decide to live from the inside out. Thank you for walking this path with us today. If this message spoke to something in you, let it guide you not just in thought but in how you live. And if you'd like to keep growing with us, remember to like this video, subscribe to Napoleon's Limitless Code, and stay connected to the deeper truth that you are always creating, peacefully, intentionally. Until next time.